So, new information continues to come out surrounding the suspected $130 million of Bitcoin stolen from the Coldcard wallet. Today, we're going to bring you up to speed on everything that's happening, and we've got another Bitcoin self-custody expert on the show to discuss all the best ways that you can hold your Bitcoin safely. I want to welcome onto the show Nick Newman. Nick is the CEO of Casa. And I got to give a personal note here, guys. Speaking of customer service from experience, I got to say the Casa team goes above and beyond. I have someone who's very, very close to me using the Casa collaborative custody, and Nick himself literally helped me through the customer service experience, trying to help this specific individual migrate their self-custody setup that had cold cards involved to a new self-custody, multi-sig collaborative custody setup. And Nick was involved for the whole 4 or 5 hours. He brought in his team. It was like top-notch customer service. I can't recommend them enough. I haven't seen another company do that. Nick, welcome to the show. And I got to say, man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your help.
Of course. I mean, we are all hands on deck right now. This is a really crazy time. And so when you reached out and we're like, hey, we're doing this migration, I was like, okay, we need to make sure that we're helping you with this. And the rest of the normal client advisors were all booked. So I was like, all right, we'll do a live. I'll join this. And so I'm glad everything went smoothly and we got all the funds to safety. So that was good.
Absolutely. It was a happy ending. And I got to say, Casa is a pretty big company, so for the CEO himself to just step up and, do the customer service support himself, really, really, I think speaks so well about Casa, right? And this entire week, guys, we've been giving you alternatives, and we've been basically telling you that if you're storing a significant amount of Bitcoin, like life savings or something, multi-sig should now be the standard. I think that's obvious after the events of July 30th, and specifically multi-vendor, multi-sig. And we've given you guys a bunch of different options. Obviously, the BitKey is great. Unchained, we had Drew from them yesterday, and now obviously we have Nick Newman from Casa, which is, again, an incredible company. I can't speak more well about them just because of my personal experience recently dealing with you guys. And you guys have a fantastic product because essentially you guys make collaborative custody incredibly easy. And could you walk us through exactly what Casa offers, Nick? Because you guys have multiple product offerings. You guys have a 2 of 3, you guys have a 3 of 5, and you guys also offer inheritance. And you guys have this incredible app that makes the process of setting up a collaborative custody multi-sig incredibly easy for someone who is not technical.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the words of the day that has been thrown around a lot over the last few days as something that is a best practice for your security is to use multi-vendor, multi-sig, right? And it's kind of, I imagine that for people who have never thought about this before and were just using a single sig wallet, they had their seed phrase, they thought they were in good shape. I imagine that hearing multi-vendor, multi-sig, you get like the emoji with the squiggly eyes because it's just like, that sounds like way too much for me. At Casa, we've just tried to make this very easy for people and to make it something where you're doing the right stuff. You're doing multi-vendor, multi-sig, but you're not really having to think about it too hard. We're just giving you all the tools to do it and kind of guiding you down the path. And if you follow our default recommendations and follow what the app does for you, then you're going to be in good shape. And so like at a very basic level in our standard Casa plan, you have a 2 of 3 multi-sig, and that means there's 3 keys. 1 key is on your phone, 1 key is on a hardware wallet, and then 1 key is held by Casa. And so in this setup, let's say you're using a single sig hardware wallet right now, you can simply just connect that same hardware wallet to Casa. The Casa app will help you generate the other 2 keys that are going to be part of that setup. And then very quickly, you can transfer the funds off the single sig and into that multi-sig 2 of 3 vault, and your funds are significantly more protected. And we had people doing this like over the last few days, people who had Bitcoin on MK3 cold cards. So their Bitcoin was vulnerable of being stolen on that single sig. They didn't have another hardware wallet to migrate to, and maybe they didn't want to send the Bitcoin to an exchange or something like that. They were connecting that hardware, that cold card, to Casa, creating a 2 of 3 multi-sig in literally less than 10 minutes, and then sending the Bitcoin from their single sig into the multi-sig using the cold card, but it's not vulnerable anymore because you've got these other keys that are in the mix that aren't compromised keys. And so this is really, like, for people who are like, oh, multi-sig just sounds like this really difficult thing, I don't know if I really need it. It doesn't have to be difficult if you're using the right provider. And the whole point is just that it gives you layers of security that add resilience to your setup. So if one layer, like your hardware wallet, is compromised, the other layers, like the other keys or the other hardware wallets that are in your setup, are providing backup, and they're there to ensure that your Bitcoin still remains secure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to emphasize enough to kind of like the user experience, right? Because I think you guys really focused on that, specifically how you guys designed the app. It makes the complexity of setting up a collaborative multi-sig wallet incredibly easy. It kind of holds your hand in a way. And specifically the higher tiers, you even have your own dedicated advisor that, you know, you can give a call to, and, you know, they'll walk you through any type of, you know, technical, any technical difficulties that you run into. And then also as well, you guys have a kind of a periodic key check reminder, right? It's called, you know,
Health check.
the health check, right?
Yeah.
That reminds you every 6 months, like, hey, like, why don't you plug in your key, sign a it's not even you're signing a transaction. You're just
signing a message.
Yeah, signing a message to confirm that you do indeed have the right key.
Yeah.
So all of this ensures that you don't make mistakes. And if you do make a mistake, Casa specifically, I really like the 3 of 5 setup in particular, Nick, because it feels basically as seamless as the 2 of 3. Because one of the keys lives on your phone secure element, and then of course 2 of the keys are on hardware wallets. But in the process of signing it's almost identical to the 2 of 3, because the key wallet signs almost instantaneously, you know, when you put your Face ID or your fingerprint. So I really like the user experience in the collaborative multi-sig product that you guys offer. It's fantastic. And this week, guys, we're venturing off our normal programming because, you know, the event of July 30th was so significant. And what we're trying to show you guys is all the different options for you to continue to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. And again, I can't recommend enough the Casa product, just because the customer service was just top tiers. It was incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for 8 years now, and we secure a lot of Bitcoin. Like, across all of our clients, we're protecting, at today's prices, it's probably more than like $8 billion worth of Bitcoin, right? And so we have been around, we've been through multiple bear markets, and we really work hard to make sure that we've built a product that is easy for people to use, while staying very secure, and also has this entire client advisor team behind it that's there to help people who are really storing large amounts of Bitcoin, to make sure that you don't have to worry about like, oh, am I messing something up in my self-custody? And that's really, you know, I think like one of the things that we've been seeing is people have been worried, like, hey, is self-custody really going to be a thing? Am I okay doing self-custody anymore after I had to emergency migrate my assets off of a cold card over to an exchange in order to save them? Like, do I still want to bring it back to my own wallet? And I think it would be really a bummer if we as an industry gave up on self-custody because of this event. And so what we're really trying to do is get the word out there that like, hey, there are still very secure ways to do this that can make sure that events like this won't compromise your Bitcoin. And we're one of the options. Unchained is one of the options. There's other options out there, and you can kind of like look at the different ones and say, hey, which product has the right trade-offs for me and the best UX or the best, you know, services that I'm looking for. And just I think that there's still a lot of potential for self-custody for the future of, you know, humanity to make it really big. And it's something that where we want to make sure that Bitcoin is successful in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so it's so important that self custody remains part of the Bitcoin movement, right? When the attack happened, you know, according to the chain analytics, 22,000 Bitcoin has moved from self custodial wallets back to exchanges. That's not good, right? You know, the Bitcoin needs individuals, millions, I would say, millions of individuals taking their Bitcoin into self custody. And then the events of July 30th, specifically with the Coldcard vulnerability, a lot of people are scared right now, rightly so. But I think that the self custody movement will become stronger because of this, and multi-sig will become the standard, right? I can't emphasize this enough. Like, you shouldn't. The issue that happened on July 30th is that there was a single point of failure, right? That was most of the people that were affected were essentially not using a passphrase, not using anything. They're just relying on Coldcard's random number generator. And those are the people that were affected the most. Even if you had a compromised Coldcard and you had a multi-sig setup, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't be affected because they wouldn't have enough keys for them to just sweep your Bitcoin. And on top of that, even if you use multiple Coldcards in your collaborative, in your multi-sig setup, it still bought you a ton of time, right, to migrate to another setup. So it adds another level of protection. And Cost is one of these companies that make this incredibly easy for the non-technical users. Like if you're coming to Bitcoin and you're not just watching Simply Bitcoin every day, you're not going down the rabbit hole, and you're just like, how do I take self-custody, and how can I do it in an easy manner? Cost is one of those companies that does this, and they can handhold you through this process, right? Like you can have an advisor. They'll call you, they'll walk you through the process, they'll recommend which devices to use. And in specific cases, I don't want to get into too many details, you know, they'll overnight you hardware wallets if you need replacements, right? Which is like, that's VIP treatment, right? Which is super, super, super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now is a particularly like trying time, I guess. And so when people need to replace some hardware wallets right now because they've got too many Coldcards in their setup, we're sending them hardware wallets overnight and we're getting that done. It is really nice that, like, with the way that this attack has played out, even if you had a threshold or a quorum of Coldcards in your multi-sig setup, you it bought you time, as you were saying. And so you were able to then move to a different setup while the attackers were more focused on the single sig. I think that the thing that we should, I want to make sure that, like, we aren't, it doesn't sound like we're saying, oh, if you were doing single sig with no passphrase, like, you made a mistake or something. That's not really the thing here. Like, the way that the Coldcard should have worked is that if you were doing single sig without a passphrase, you were not vulnerable in this way. But unfortunately, the way that what ended up happening was, like, most of the community, the people that bought the Coldcard product, they were like, okay, the Coldcard team are security experts and they've built this device to be secure, so I'm going to use it and it will be a secure device. And that's a very reasonable assumption. And I don't think, like, some people have been saying this is kind of this this indictment of self-custody. Like, people just can't do it because look at how many people made this mistake and resulted in their assets being stolen. And I just don't think that's actually the situation, because you can play out this same situation with the custody of the assets being handled by an exchange. Like, if you keep your Bitcoin on an exchange, you are ultimately trusting that the security experts at the exchange have properly coded their security infrastructure to hold your assets without losing it. And that's the exact same situation here. People were trusting that the Coldcard security experts had properly coded the Coldcard to secure their assets. So when you're holding your Bitcoin in these types of setups that have a single point of failure, one hardware wallet or one exchange, you're really trusting that one party to do their job right. When you use a product that, like Casa, where you can have more than one different party whose security experts have built their products to be as secure as they can, and each of those parties act as a check on each other and as another layer of security for your Bitcoin, that's going to be a better scenario for you, because you have to trust somebody at some level of the Bitcoin protocol stack with how you're going to secure your Bitcoin, right? And so you're trusting some software or hardware developer at some point along the way. And so the way that we've designed Casa is like, yeah, you're trusting Casa to some extent, but you're also using your Trezor or your Ledger or your Passport with Casa. And so when you're using those hardware wallets, then those hardware wallets are acting as a check on what Casa is doing. And so if Casa ever messes up our software, ideally the hardware wallet catches that and says like, oh, hey, this is doing something that it shouldn't, and we're getting like a cryptographic mismatch here or something, and this is putting your funds at risk. And then you can go even another layer further, and you can take an open source multi-sig wallet like Sparrow or like Electrum, and Casa gives you a way to just copy your entire Casa setup, upload it into Sparrow, and then it'll show you the whole wallet there. And so then you can use another software vendor to verify everything that Casa is doing. And so the nice thing, and the way that I think people really need to shift their mindset when they are self-custodying their assets, is you need to figure out a setup where multiple different providers and multiple different, basically, companies' security experts are acting as a check on each other. And if one of them fails, your whole setup doesn't fail. It's just that that one fails, but hey, your Bitcoin is still secured by this one until you can fix this one. So this is, I think that this defense in depth and this layered security is really how people should be thinking about their security going forward.
Absolutely. And I just kind of want to show everybody, what that UI looks like. So you guys could check it out. I'm going to pull up the Casa website. So it's super, super clean. The app is fantastic. It's wonderful. It has the inheritance tab, in there. Could you talk about the pay, Nick? What is that?
Yeah. So we have multiple different levels of security within Casa, right? So you've got everything from the pay tab is just a very simple mobile wallet on your phone. All it takes is your phone to send Bitcoin. So you can think of that as like, how much cash would you keep in your wallet, or how much Bitcoin do you want to be able to go spend at PubKey when you buy a beer? That's what you keep in your pay wallet, which is just your mobile wallet. Then you've got a 2 of 3 multi-sig vault. This is a 3-key vault. 2 out of the 3 keys are needed to spend your funds. Then you've got a 5-key vault. It's a 3 out of 5 multi-sig. 5 total keys, any 3 of them needed to spend. And so all of these different security levels are available in one place in the Casa app. And you can actually pool your Bitcoin into the different security levels based on how you use Bitcoin on an ongoing basis. And so a little bit in the pay wallet, a little bit more in your 2 of 3, most of your stack in your 3 of 5, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, this is the UI, guys, that I was talking about. So obviously one of the advantages of multi-sig is not only protecting you from hardware vulnerabilities like what happened with Coldcard, but it also protects you from physical attacks as well, right? And we've always mentioned this on the show, perhaps not as in depth, but the advantages of multi-sig is that you can spread out your keys over multiple locations. So let's say, and this is happening a lot in France, by the way. You see a lot of these news stories that are breaking of people essentially getting kidnapped, right? But one of the advantages of multi-sig is that if you separate your keys like physically, perhaps leaving one at home, perhaps leaving one at the office, perhaps leaving one in a safe, in another location, even if you do have some type of physical attacker, they wouldn't be able to access your Bitcoin, right? And Casa conveniently, and they send you stickers, by the way. I have a whole sticker story, but I'm not going to get into it. But Nick knows the inside joke. So again, it allows you to, okay, so this is the specific, hardware wallet that I'm using for my home key. This is a specific hardware wallet that I'm using for my office key. This is the specific hardware wallet that I'm using for my safe key. And then it's also important, the multi-vendor aspect of it. So even if there's a vulnerability on a specific manufacturer, doesn't matter. You're fine. All you got to do, and Casa also makes this incredibly easy, is you just migrate the key to a separate vendor, and you could do this all through the app. It's incredibly easy to do. And then could you walk us through the key, the recovery key, right, Nick? Because that's also that also helps you. Like if you find yourself in a situation where you lose two of the keys for whatever reason, Casa holds a recovery key themselves. How is that recovery key used? What is the process? I know that, for example, the 2 of 3, Nick, there's like a 7-day kind of like cool down period that is implemented. And I know for the higher tiers, there's even more type of verification.
Yeah, so the Casa key is always one key in your multi-sig. So it's never enough for Casa to spend your Bitcoin. But it is enough where if you lose keys, or maybe your keys are just distributed in such a way that it's not easy for you to access them, you can actually use the Casa key as one of the signatures to help you access the assets. And so that is that's what we use our key for, and you can always count on us with that one signature. But the thing to know about it, like I've had some questions lately about, hey, how did you generate this key? Was it generated on a Coldcard? No, it was not generated on a Coldcard. We generated it very securely a long time ago. And we make sure that it's really well protected. And so you don't have to worry about that being like a low entropy key in any way. So when you request the Casa security key, we need to verify that it's actually you, and we need to verify that you're not under duress. So for our standard members who are using a 2 of 3 multi-sig, you answer some security questions, and then there's a 7-day delay, as you were saying, Nico. For our premium and above members with the 3 of 5 multi-sig, we do a video verification call where we actually get on a call with you. We talk to you, make sure that you are okay, make sure you're not under duress. The way that we actually do that is when we onboard you to Casa, we set up a duress phrase with you. And so if you get on a call and use that duress phrase, we just act like everything's normal, but we don't sign your transaction, and then we activate your emergency contact plan. And so we've really done a lot of thinking, especially for larger holders of Bitcoin, about how not just to provide you software that keeps you secure, but how to build our entire service and security element around you as a person. So the Casa key is a really important part of the overall security, and clients love using it either for help when they've lost keys, or for convenience because they're traveling or they've distributed their keys all around the world or something like that. One other thing I want to mention, I think that is important, is that Casa doesn't KYC. So some of the other multi-sig providers that you could use, you have to KYC when you do that. And I saw somebody in the chat was mentioning like, oh, you have to give Casa your XPubs in order to use their service. And yes, we do know the XPubs to your keys, because we have to be able to show you in the software what your balance is and create transactions and sign transactions, receive Bitcoin, all that kind of thing. And so all that requires us to have your XPubs. But you can sign up for Casa completely anonymously. So you can use an email that is not attached to or doesn't reference your real name. A great way to do that is if you're a Proton Mail user, they have a free way to just create an alias in Proton Mail, and then it's a pseudonymous alias email that forwards to your real Proton Mail email. I love that. I use that all the time. And then you can pay us in Bitcoin so that we don't have any credit card data on you. And so then that way you're signed up completely pseudonymously. And so for people who are really worried about privacy and don't want Casa to, like have all this information connected to their real identity, that's a great way to approach it.
We have a great question from the chat, Nick, and I also want to while we address that, I want to have the demo playing in the background, so you guys got something to look at here. So this is part of the UI. So someone in the chat asks, how much does it cost, and what amount of Bitcoin is a reasonable amount to protect? Is it cost effective for someone with a small amount of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I would say generally I would recommend that you start looking at using multi-sig when you're securing probably like $10,000 or more worth of Bitcoin. Or you expect it to be worth that very soon kind of thing. That's like if you just want like a flat dollar amount, right? And then if you want more of a heuristic to follow, it could be like, is this your life savings, and how disappointed are you if you lose all of it? And so in that scenario, then, even if it's less than $10,000, but you would answer yes to that question, then you probably want to seriously consider multi-sig for this. So how much does Casa cost? There's a pretty big range. So our basic entry level tier is just $250 a year. It's the same amount you're paying for Netflix or ChatGPT to secure potentially your life savings. Highly recommend it. There is a 30-day free trial, so you can try the product without paying us and decide if you like it or not. And then it goes up from there when we start to add in all of the like higher levels of security, like a 3 of 5 multi-sig and the private client advisor team that you're working with. Then it gets into the like $2,100 a year range for our premium tier. And if you're a private client, it's even higher than that. And so it's a pretty big range, but we try to make it something that is approachable for everyone, depending on how much security you really need.
Awesome. Yeah, I see multiple people asking about the calling part. I'm losing. Where's the other? Someone else asked that as well. Anyhow, the other question, I can't find the actual. I don't know, Opti, if you could pull it up. The other question is specifically, how much does it cost for you to be able to call Casa, for you to have like an advisor?
Yeah. So, excuse me. If you want to be working with our advisory team, who's like available to get on a call with you, anytime you want to book a call with us, video call, we're there. That starts at $2,100 a year. When you're setting up at the $250 level, if you're signing up for that standard plan, there actually is an option when you're signing up to add an onboarding call. And I think that costs like another $250. And that's more of just like a one-time thing where our team will get on and help you set up that standard plan for, for your first go around.
Awesome. Nick, so follow-up question to that is, what are your thoughts on what happened on July 30th? Because it was a really big shock to the entire industry. My heart goes out to all the people that affected. I think the amount right now is $130 million that have been stolen. What were your thoughts on it? Where were you guys? I'm sure you guys, we're getting a ton of calls, the night of. You know, what happened there, and how could it have been avoided?
Well, I think like the so what were we feeling that day? A lot of shock, but also just like really jumping into action, dropping everything else and trying to add our voice to the mix to help reach people who were using cold cards, to make sure that they were seeing the message of like, yeah, you got to move your money off a cold card right now. And here is how you can do it safely. So we were all hands on deck trying to help people and trying to get the word out. What did we think about it? You know, is honestly, it is kind of like, this is like the nightmare fuel situation for Bitcoin, because people who thought they were doing the right thing, they had their Bitcoin on a hardware wallet that's air gapped, never touches the internet. They backed up their seed phrase properly. They never put their seed phrase into an online device, and still their hardware wallet or their wallet just gets remotely stolen by hackers because somebody messed up with the entropy of the hardware. So it's just a really sad situation, because people are losing life savings and they thought that they were doing everything right. And there's a lot of times in self-custody where if somebody loses their money, you can directly point to very clear mistakes that they made. They let somebody trick them into putting their seed phrase into a website that stole their money. They, you know, didn't pay attention and lost their key. There's like ways that it's pretty clear when you mess up, you lost your money and we're sad, but it was a mistake that you made. In this scenario, people did everything right and then lost their money. And so it just really sucks. And so I think like, as far as how we prevent this from happening going forward, you know, one of the things that we've been building Casa as a multi-sig product for 8 years, and we've tried to make it a product that is super easy to use and accessible for a lot of people. And the pushback that we've heard over the years, not from everybody, but from some people in the community, is like, you don't need multi-sig, like just generate your seed phrase, back it up properly, use a passphrase for your single sig, you know, roll some dice or something like that. A single sig hardware wallet is more than enough. And you don't need to mess with that multi-sig stuff. And now here we are with this thing where it's like, people didn't really remember, oh, I got to do the passphrase, or they didn't pick a strong enough passphrase. And they definitely didn't roll dice, because nobody wants to roll, or very few people want to roll dice 100 times, right? And so I think that we will probably push back a lot more on people saying that multi-sig is too hard or multi-sig is unnecessary, because it is really a very small additional step that you can take to make sure that your life savings are protected well. And so that's how we're going to try to prevent this going forward, is really evangelize more of like, hey, this isn't that big of a step to go from a single sig hardware wallet to a multi-sig. We've made it easy. We can help you. And this is your life savings. So you really should take the protection of it seriously.
Absolutely. Nick, can you also talk about, because one of the things that was mentioned on one of the shows was, it's not only the single point of failure of the hardware device itself, but your own mortality being a single point of failure, right? So you guys actually offer an inheritance feature. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because you might have the technical know-how on how to access your Bitcoin, but your family, right, if God forbid anything happens to you, might not have the technical know-how, right? So could you talk a little bit about the inheritance feature that Casa offers, and that how that can help families, you know, access their loved ones' Bitcoin in case they, you know, pass away, God forbid, or anything happens to them physically?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we would always hear from our customers that they were worried about, because we built Casa, and then like a few years in, we were hearing a lot of people saying, hey, I'm really worried about what my family's going to do if I pass away. So we built the inheritance feature, and the way that we designed it is to be as easy as possible for the person who is inheriting the Bitcoin, because they're the ones that are going to be in this really stressful time when if you pass away, right, they're dealing with a lot of stuff. They're incredibly sad, and they need to be able to not have to like learn all this stuff about how Bitcoin self-custody works in order to access the assets. And we've seen this go the opposite way, like when people didn't have inheritance set up, our inheritance feature set up, and they passed away, and family members are like trying to figure out how to work these things using different, using like Sparrow or Electrum or something like that. And it's just like, it can be a real mess and very stressful for people. And we've even seen people whose family member, like the original owner of the Bitcoin, got kind of cute with their setup. Like they had it split among multiple different hardware wallets. They weren't using multi-sig, but they had like different hardware wallets and put a little bit of Bitcoin on each. And like the person passed away, the spouse was trying to figure it out, actually ended up getting socially engineered and like lost all the Bitcoin because she gave the social engineer the seed phrases. And so this is a real problem that we have to solve for people. And so the way that Casa's inheritance works is, how do we make it as easy as possible for your family? So when you set this up, because one of the keys is on your phone, you can actually just have you invite your family member, they set up a free Casa account, and it gets connected to yours as your beneficiary. And then they scan a QR code on your phone, which shares an encrypted version of your phone's key to their phone. It's encrypted. They can't use it. It's not like there's a seed phrase floating around. It's stored securely and backed up to their cloud provider. And then if you're using a 2 of 3 multi-sig, that's all you got to do. If you're using a 3 of 5 multi-sig, you're also going to make sure they have access to one of your hardware wallets. So now they've got either 1 or 2 keys that they have access to, but it's not enough for them to spend the Bitcoin right now, so they don't become a security vulnerability for your Bitcoin setup while you're still alive. Let's say you pass away. They open up Casa, they hit a button that says request access to the vault, and that starts a 6-month timer. And during that 6 months, Casa is sending you messages and emails and notifications saying that your inheritance protocol was activated. If you do nothing and you don't cancel it, then at the end of the 6 months, the Casa app gives them the ability to use that phone key, that additional hardware key, and then the ability to request a signature from the Casa key. And that gives them either the 2 or the 3 signatures that they need to move the Bitcoin out of the vault. And then the whole time our team is available to help people through this from a support side, which we find is often actually the most important part for people, because the Bitcoiner wants to make sure that in case something happens to them, there's somebody knowledgeable who's just there to help their family through the process, and Casa can be that person.
Absolutely. And we got another question in the chat, Nick, and it was kind of similar to the earlier question. It's from DCD 6576, and they said, how much should have before consider how much Bitcoin, I'm adding to this, how much Bitcoin should you have before considering multi-sig? You should set up multi-sig from the start. I guess that's the question, right? So it's like, is it depending on the quantity of Bitcoin, or do you recommend setting up a multi-sig setup from the start?
I mean, it really depends on your willingness to either pay for a service like Casa or go through the additional trouble of like setting up a multi-sig with like a free and open source software product like Sparrow Wallet. And generally Sparrow Wallet is free, but I think it's harder to use than Casa, and it doesn't have all these additional like help around it that our team provides. But it's still a great product for a certain group of people. And so you can just get started with multi-sig from the start. And it's really about like, how are you viewing this from a perspective of what you are willing to pay in order to make sure that your stack is secure. And especially if you're going to be going from 0 Bitcoin to a meaningful investment pretty quickly, then it makes sense to get started with multi-sig from the start.
Yeah, I agree. Did you something else to pull up? Oh, question from what the FUD. they ask, what is multi-sig?
Multi-sig just means, okay, so when you've got a Bitcoin wallet, a lot of times people think, okay, I've got my Coldcard, or I've got a mobile wallet that stores my Bitcoin. And that is a single signature wallet. All it takes is one private key to move your Bitcoin, and one private key is protecting your Bitcoin and acting as your wallet. A multi-signature wallet means that there's more than one private key. So multi meaning more, and then signature meaning signature is what a private key does. It signs a transaction to approve moving Bitcoin. And so when you use a multi-signature wallet, it is a wallet that requires multiple signatures to move Bitcoin. And so that's how you can think of it. And you can just think of it as like, you've got more than one key protecting your assets. So in case you lose a key, you don't lose everything.
Gotcha.
Another good metaphor, actually, sorry to interrupt, is like if you've ever opened a safety deposit box at the bank, you know, you go to the bank and they give you a physical key, they have a physical key, and you got to put both keys into the safety deposit box and turn them at the same time in order to open it. A multi-sig wallet is basically like that, but for Bitcoin digitally.
Gotcha. And services like Casa, what they do is that they make setting that up incredibly easy. Because if you do, you could do this if you have the technical know-how. Personally, it took me about at least a year of tinkering, because I don't really necessarily come from a technical background. But it took me about a year of tinkering to really understand how to set up a multi-sig, completely independently on Electrum first, and then on the Sparrow. It's not for the faint of heart, right? Like, I had to go through a lot of trial and error. Casa is a service that essentially, it makes the UI and UX so easy that the average person could set up a multi-sig setup incredibly easy. And because Casa holds one of the keys, it also reduces the probability that if you commit an error where you lose one of the keys, you're not locked out of your Bitcoin, which would be absolutely catastrophic. And that's not the case if you're doing a multi-sig setup all up on your own, right? Because if you do a multi-sig setup all up on your own, and God forbid, you have a 2 of 3 and you lose, 2 of those 3 keys, that's it. It's over, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, Nick, I want to thank you for coming on today's show. Go
ahead.
Actually,
somebody asked a great question that I saw in the chat.
Do you want to pull it up?
Can Casa address any mitigations or reductions of point of failure from their end, e.g. if they get hacked or their business ransacked? So this is a good question, because we've built Casa to eliminate single points of failure, and that includes ourselves. And so Casa always holds one key in your setup, which is not enough to move Bitcoin. That key is held offline, not on our servers. So if our servers get hacked, the best thing that the hackers are going to get is like a list of wallets, basically. And so if you signed up pseudonymously, then you don't even have the wallet connected to your identity. They don't know who you are. They'll never be able to move. If Casa servers get hacked, the attackers cannot move the Bitcoin. So that's the first thing. The second thing, in how we eliminate ourselves as a single point of failure, is let's say we go out of business. If you're keeping your assets on an exchange like Binance or Coinbase or something like that, and they go out of business, or the government cracks down on them because they're, shitcoin casino and like trading things that the government considers to be securities. Like, there's a lot of different ways that a business can go out of business. And if they're a custodian holding your Bitcoin, then your Bitcoin is just frozen in their bankruptcy process or in whatever proceedings like they're going to use to go back out and distribute it. And you will go through years, if not a decade plus, of waiting to get your Bitcoin back. With Casa, if we go out of business tomorrow, everybody can take their information of their Casa wallet, plug it into Sparrow or plug it into Electrum, pops up their exact wallet, and they can use the keys that they hold to move the Bitcoin out of the wallet. And so Casa is not a single point of failure in this scenario, and you can always use sovereign recovery, which is that process of exporting your wallet and re-importing it into a different wallet provider to access your Bitcoin, which to us is like a critical part of building this product, because it's most aligned with the Bitcoin ethos to make sure that Casa can't be that single point of failure.
Absolutely. And again, this is all about sovereignty. This is what Simply Bitcoin's all about, right? Like, you maintain your sovereignty, ladies and gentlemen. And as Nick pointed out, you can sign up to the Casa product without revealing your identity, right? So, you know, that is fantastic, right? Because again, you know, God forbid anything happens to Casa, you could still access your funds, and then Casa can't access your funds independently, even if they're under duress, because they don't have sufficient amount of keys, right? So it aligns perfectly with the Bitcoin ethos of sovereignty. And this entire week, again, usually we're a news program. Again, we've been highlighting the different, since the events of July 30th, we've been highlighting the different solutions for you guys, like Casa, like Unchained. We have the BitKey team coming on later on this week. And these are all great companies. I'm a little bit biased here because I had a fantastic experience yesterday. Casa's customer service is just like, it's just fantastic. It's amazing. You know, this is a great product. It's a great tool for you to maintain your sovereignty while simultaneously using multi-sig. And if you're not technical, has a fantastic UX UI. And again, if you're thinking about your family members, it has an inheritance option as well as that you can use. So highly recommend them here at Simply Bitcoin. I have family and friends that use it. And it's a fantastic product that you guys built. And Nick, thank you so much for joining. Guys, you can check out more about Casa. Go to casa.io. They're currently accepting calls right now from, you know, all the Coldcard stuff. So their team is working around the clock to help you guys if you want to migrate. Nick, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nico. And if you have more questions, you're wondering about, you know, hey, how am I going to do this multi-sig thing? Sounds complicated. Just book a call with our team. We'll walk you through it. It's simpler than you think.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, we're going to be right back just after the break. We have a lot to cover on today's show. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned.
Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns, paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stampseed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY. All right, guys, we're back. We do have Matt Hill coming in as well in a minute. So this one is just going to be short. And I do, just in the context of everything that we've seen in the last, I don't know, what, almost 6 days, I guess. Yeah, 6 days. We're going to obviously be continuing throughout the week. This is the theme for this week. You know, I'm sorry, guys. I know some of you guys are a little bored of it already, but I feel like we got to do our due diligence. Anyways, current Bitcoin price is $64,530. It is a decline of, or discount of 48.9% from all-time high. Well, interesting developments that we've seen since last Thursday. This is not just a Bitcoin specific issue. What we are now seeing is it started with Bitcoin. It started with the Coldcard wallet hack. And now it is not only, I'm sure other Bitcoin projects have been attempted. Obviously, nothing has happened in the 6 days, but we do have a new update that this is spreading out into traditional finance. And that's where I want to take this conversation. I did talk to my mother yesterday, Nico, and I was telling her all this, and I'm like, yeah, the AI is getting really crazy. It's like a brave new world. This is going to spread out everywhere. Little did I know that it was going to come out this morning, that it was spreading out. So here's Walter Bloomberg. If you guys don't know, it's what I think it's Delta One or Delta One. I don't know. You guys know this Twitter account, I'm sure. But it goes, major hedge funds targeted in a wave of attempted cyber attacks. Major hedge funds, including Citadel, Point72, and 2 Sigma, were targeted in a wave of sophisticated cyber attacks using AI-powered voice phishing, or vishing, to trick employees into granting system access. 2 Sigma said it successfully blocked the attack and found no evidence of a breach. Cybersecurity experts warn AI is making large-scale attacks cheaper and easier, raising risk across the entire financial industry. So again, I know in the Bitcoin space, this has been the topic for us since last Thursday. I guess maybe since Friday. Last Thursday, we were still trying to figure it out. And a lot of people have been, when coining this word like token wars or AI versus Bitcoin. Well, as we have seen, now we have a confirmed attack on traditional finance. So the implications of what we are seeing right now with AI, and you guys know, if you guys watch the show and you guys know my take on AI, I've been very flippant on AI. I think the AI hype bubble in terms of the stock market, it's overvalued. I've been kind of like, it's just a glorified search engine. Well, as of Thursday, I think I have to acknowledge, like, yeah, AI, okay. I underestimated the new frontier AI models. I underestimated how fast they are advancing. Do I think it's going, we're at artificial general intelligence right now? I'm like, I don't think so. But we have seen, obviously, in the case of the Coldcard attack, that it is, in fact, making it easier and cheaper to attack the not only Bitcoin wallets, Bitcoin projects, but traditional finance at large. And as I was kind of telling my mom, trying to explain this in layman terms, the events that we felt and where we're going further, it's kind of what I was saying yesterday, that I think for the next 2 weeks right now, we will see the panic in the Bitcoin space. Everyone will feel a little uncertain. We really don't know if we're all protected. I think as much information as we know right now, as long as you're not using a code card, the security practices that we know that to be good are obviously still holding up. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that we won't find new bugs, but we are now seeing that this is going to spread out into all software, every critical software on planet Earth, TradFi, hedge funds, banks. It's happening as we speak, and we are living in a different world. And as this tweet said here, and I think this is the big takeaway at the very bottom, is cybersecurity experts are warning that AI is making large-scale attacks cheaper and easier, raising the risks across the financial industry. And of course, it costs more money to protect the software now, even using the AI, as we've seen with Rob. But it's crazy how quickly this stuff is happening.
I also want to say, and this was pointed out on Bitcoin Twitter, that unfortunately the LLM engines like Claude and Chat don't allow you to discover vulnerabilities, right? And they do that again for protection, and I'm sure for liability reasons. But China's model, the Kim 3, does allow you to look for vulnerabilities. So it actually puts the United States at a competitive disadvantage. The fact that we have to use Chinese engines to Chinese LLM engines to discover potential vulnerabilities in code. This is an arms race. Why can't the American public use these, use these engines like they should be able to use them, right? Like, why do we have to rely on another country to be able to discover vulnerabilities in software, right? And I get what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is they're not trying to enable crime, and they don't want the engines to be used to find exploits and that type of stuff. I understand that. But again, it puts the United States at a competitive disadvantage. At least create like a special tier, so that, again, you have to sign up. Perhaps you have to go through additional KYC so they can track who's using the engine for what. So there's a paper trail, but at least focus on that, because they have the capability to do that, but they're choosing not to, right? And I think that's absurd. And I think that puts the United States at a completely competitive disadvantage. And it's a shame. It's a shame, And again, I don't think it's a coincidence that the new, it's called the Kim 3 model was released.
I actually have an update from them too that I'll pull in. Yeah, it's the Kimmy K3.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But here, let me pull up this other kind of update here, and I think Mr. Hotto probably framed this like the best. It's like Bitcoin will help everyone, they just don't know it yet. Well, check out this news, since we're on the topic of AI and the hacks and stuff, and we are kind of waiting for Matt Hill to pop in here. Look at what we saw. Prim AI, basically the creator of the Kimmy K3, which if you've been following along on this saga, Rob Hamilton has been using the Kimmy K3 Frontier model. I think now he's spent $20,000, maybe even more, $40,000 to, get the AI credits to continue to do. They've been calling it the Red Team security protocol checks, or, security vulnerability checks. Well, look at this. Over the last few days, we've received overwhelming demand for access to Kimmy K3, primarily from Bitcoin researchers and security experts. To support them, we've launched Prem Router, a gateway to access open source models securely. We're also sponsoring credits for teams that need access to frontier intelligence during these critical times. If you're interested and have been impacted by the latest events, please reach out to us via the form below. And they did give one last update, and Matt just popped in, so we will continue on to the next segment, but wrapping it up. Last 24 hours have been insane. Prem Router has processed 1 billion plus tokens via Kimmy K3. We've partnered with 27 plus Bitcoin teams to run security audits on their code base. We've helped find 3 critical vulnerabilities that could have been catastrophic. While we're still catching up with demand, if you are a project needs access to frontier intelligence, we're still accepting requests. Thank you for all the support. So, honestly, shouts out to the Kimmy K3 team here. Everyone will get better because of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was just the canary in the coal mine throughout this whole process. As we've seen, it's spreading, and some of these AI companies are in fact responding to what had happened. So really, really good developments in some senses. Obviously, catastrophic, horrible events just overall. But anyways, let's keep it moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we are going to be right back. We have Matt Hill, the CEO of Start9. We're going to bring him up on stage right after the break. We'll be back in just a little bit. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with 0 penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey, and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or hivedigitaltech.com.
You secured your Bitcoin, but did you secure your devices too? They're still broadcasting your location and digital footprint. GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell, 5G, EMF, all of it is leaking. Escape Zone fixes that. Their Faraday bags block every signal your device emits, so you decide when you're detectable, not the grid. Built for Bitcoiners who know sovereignty isn't just your wallet. It's your phone, your hardware wallet, your keys, and your entire digital life. Go to escapezone.com/simply and use code SIMPLY for 10% off. That's escapezone.com/simply, code SIMPLY.
All right, everybody, we are back. We got the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only.
That's
Matt Hill, CEO of Start9, Sovereign Computing, baby. If you guys want to get your own Bitcoin node, which every time we drop the poll in the chat, it's like 60% of you guys are not running your own node at this point. Go to start9.com. This is the node that I use myself. It's fantastic. It's great. Matt, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Thanks for that overwhelming intro. Happy to be back.
How you doing, Matt? How's everything?
You can hear me okay, right? This is on?
This is perfect.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
perfect.
you're good.
Good.
How you doing, Matt? How's everything? How's life?
Good. Overwhelming at the moment. You know, we have a lot going on at Start9. I have a lot going on in my personal life. So yeah, I'm a busy guy these days.
So Matt, first, I want to get your thoughts on the events of July 30th, and then I want everybody to I want you to tell everybody what Start9 is, and then let's get into the Bip-110 discussion. What's going on over there? So, yeah.
Oh, thoughts on the Coldcard Hack? Yeah, I mean it's a horrible. I probably don't have much to add beyond what is out there and known, which is why, you know, I haven't been posting on X much about it. I mean, everything that needs to be said is being said, and everything that needs to be done is being done. I and the team are here and have been here for people who have asked us for assistance along the way. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it's just a very unfortunate circumstance. I think it sets Bitcoin self-custody back a little bit. I think there's a debate to be had there, but I do think it's a net negative for the medium term. You know, viability of Bitcoin as a self-custodial asset, as it needs to be. But, you know, I think we'll pull through, sure.
Absolutely. I think self-custody is going to come out stronger after this. I think the big lesson learned here is, especially if you store significant amount of Bitcoin, don't have a single point of failure, right? You learn how to use multi-sig. The BitKey is a great device. The collaborative custody companies like Unchained and Casa, we just had the CEO of Casa on today's show. And then the open source version, the Liana guys, I think do a great job. Normally, I'd recommend Nunchuck, but they did disclose that they have that they were using MK4s for entropy. So I'm sure they're going to change that in the back end. But yeah, check out Casa, check out Liana, check out Unchained, and of course the BitKey, which has everything built into one device. So Matt, for the audience that doesn't know, that's uninitiated, what is Start9? What is your guys' mission? What do you guys do?
Start9's mission is to make it possible for people, everyday normal people, right, to use computers in such a way that intermediaries and custodians are not involved at all. So, for example, when you open up your cell phone or your laptop and you do anything at all, whether it's taking a picture and sharing it with friends and family, or messaging your colleagues, or managing your passwords, or hosting your website, pretty much anything that you can do on a computer requires you to utilize an intermediary, and in most cases as well, a custodian for all of your data, which gives immense power over to those companies, those entities, and also the governments that they are potentially beholden to. So you are sort of a digital serf of sorts, and the way out of that, and there's only one way out of that, is to run your own server and personal data center, such that all of your computing activities are processed on and stored on that personal server. So it's the sort of growing your own food and cooking it yourself version of the digital world.
Absolutely. And one of the features that you guys have is on your devices. It's not only a sovereign computer and essentially your own server, but it also has a Bitcoin node built into this. So that's one of the primary reasons I use the Start9 device. I recommend it to my friends and family. Been a friend of Matt for a long time. He's taken a lot of my money because I continue to buy his products because they're fantastic. And this is the server one. Again, it has one of the many apps it has, right, guys? It's not just a Bitcoin node, right? It's a sovereign computer. So it has multiple different apps on the device. This is the server one. You can choose how much RAM it has, how much storage it has. I always max on everything because I'm a nerd. It's incredible. And what's awesome about this, Matt, is that this is open source, right? So even if you guys don't want to buy the pre-built device, you can download the Start9 OS and you can put it on a laptop. I'm lazy and I don't do that, and I just give money to Matt and buy the pre-built device, which is very, very, very well made. But Matt, you guys focus on on the open source part of it so much. So when you guys pick a hardware device, you guys really dig deep into that device to make sure that there isn't any type of backdoors or anything like that. So could you talk a little bit about why it's so important running your own node and what the manufacturer philosophy is behind the server one that you guys currently have on your website?
Well, first, I appreciate all the compliments there. I also apologize to the audience for the rapid typing that was taking place in the background during my first little rant there. It was distracting to me as well. So that is now over. That was my partner and CTO over there hacking on some code, but he's now using a different keyboard. So we can move on. So yeah, Start OS, which is the operating system that runs on that server you were just showing, is an MIT licensed open source Linux distribution. It is Linux, and it is a unique flavor of Linux, a unique what makes it unique and differentiates it from other versions of Linux is that it is purpose-built to enable you to own and operate a personal server or a personal data center. It is not meant to operate a laptop or tablet or phone. It is meant to operate a server. And before that, any other Linux distro that you wanted to use to operate a server required you to use the command line. You had to be sort of a Linux sysadmin or have Linux sysadmin experience and skills in order to effectively operate that server. And so what we have done is created a Linux distro that makes owning and operating a server accessible to everyone. And we've completely open sourced it, of course. And everything that we do, by the way, every piece of software that we have and distribute is licensed under MIT, which is the maximally open and free software licensing. And we do this because we believe in transparency. We believe that information should be free. We are not threatened by giving away, you know, all of our hard work. We welcome other people to use it, to make money off of it, to contribute to it. We think ultimately it's not a threat to us as a business, and that it makes the world a better place at the same time. So it's win-win for everybody. As far as the comments that you made about hardware itself, the Server Pure, the device that we used to sell and that went permanently out of stock a few months ago, was a rooted device, so to speak, right? It was running open firmware that had Intel's management engine disabled in firmware. And so it was sort of the maximally open source hardware that you could get as well. Unfortunately, that chip is no longer available, and disabling Intel's management engine is sort of an ongoing cat and mouse game. And the availability of the hardware necessary for us to do that on a more modern device just isn't there right now. And we ourselves do not have the resources or time to put, you know, effort into that. So the server one that is on the store right now is a mini PC. There's nothing special about the server one. It is a high quality, high performant mini PC that we warranty. We have a 2-year limited hardware warranty on it, and that we support in our support channels. But I do not want to mislead anyone into thinking that, like the Server Pure before it, is a open hardware device. It is not. It has closed source firmware blobs on it, just like every computer everyone listening to this is currently using. Your laptop, your tablet, your cell phone, all of it is just riddled with closed source firmware. There is no such thing as a open firmware platform, but we are aggressively working on it and are demonstrating, in fact, with our forthcoming router product. The router is as open as a hardware device as you can find on this planet. We will be selling that starting next month. Fantastic.
And I appreciate the candidness and the transparency, Matt. I think it's super, it's honorable, man. And this is what happens when Matt releases a new product. This is how I react. But anyhow, Matt, I do want to address kind of like the elephant in the room, because this month, you know,
in a couple of days,
you know, the BIP-110 saga is going to start accelerating. And I believe the signaling starts, was it in 2 days?
The 8th, I saw someone in the chat say 443 blocks from right now.
And then in the end of the month, it's kind of like the mandatory something. Matt, could you explain what's happening with BIP-110? And then also, can you explain how Start9 allows you to run either Bitcoin Core or NOTs, you know, whatever you prefer?
Yeah. This whole thing is a lot, right? It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to keep track of, and there's a lot of confusion, understandably, around everything that's happening related to what started off as a debate around Bitcoin's policy layer, you know, just what nodes would and would not accept into their mempools and relay on the peer-to-peer network. And I would say evolved, but it's actually been sort of devolved, right? Like this has degraded into a kind of gritty, nasty, you know, shit-throwing war that has moved to consensus and is now represented in the form of a proposed soft fork, BIP-110, which is reduced data temporary soft fork, is its alias. And so again, there's a lot of moving parts. It's complex. There are strong opinions on all sides, and for, you know, somebody who's just like in Bitcoin being like, hey, I want to separate money from state and I want to, you know, hold my Bitcoin, hold my keys, it's a lot to take in. it is not expected that everyone, sort of puts in all the time to understand it. So I will do my best to kind of give a high level overview here, as well as maybe a little bit of guidance, because you can get hurt by this, right? There are ways in which that you can do this wrong that could even result in loss of funds. And it's really important to me that people understand at least the bare minimum that they need to avoid any harm to themselves or people around them, especially on the heels of all the cold card crap, right? The last thing we need is more of the same. Not the same, but more stuff piled on top of it. So anyway, over the past few months, there has been an opportunity for miners to voluntarily signal support for BIP-110. And if at any point the support had reached a level of 55%, BIP-110 would have kicked in, activated, and become basically Bitcoin. And the network, similar to soft forks before it, would just have become the new rules of Bitcoin. That period of sort of miner activated, the window for miners to sort of voluntarily activate BIP-110 is now coming to a close around August 8th or 9th. It's at block 961632. And starting at that block begins a period known as mandatory signaling. This is not BIP-110 activating. BIP-110 is not going to activate at that block height. It simply is a period of time where miners are now required, according to the BIP-110 soft fork consensus rules, they are now required to signal their intent to activate BIP-110. And the way that they do that is by setting a bit in the version header of any block that they mine. This is version bit 4. And if it is set, then it is the miner saying, I intend to activate BIP-110. And any block that is mined after that block height, right, once mandatory signaling begins, any block that is mined after that block height that does not set BIP4 in the header will be rejected. It will be viewed as invalid by any node on the network that is running the BIP-110 software client, which is Bitcoin knots. So if you are running Bitcoin knots, sometime around August 8th, 9th, when this block height hits, if a miner anywhere on Earth mines a block without this version bit set, your node will reject that block, and there will effectively be a chain split. At that moment, there will emerge two Bitcoins, two different chains, and your node will be monitoring the chain that does not accept that block. You are what's known as an enforcing node. You are enforcing BIP-110 signaling, and other nodes, namely knots pre-RDTS and core, will accept that block. And so the network will diverge at that moment. I do think it is important to state that at Start9 and on StartOS, which is our operating system, our primary principle is user sovereignty. Now, that's our whole reason for existence, is so that people can use computers in ways that do not require intermediaries or custodians, and that includes us. And we design our technology to afford maximum power to the user and independence and sovereignty to the user. So StartOS, the operating system, has no opinion whatsoever about what software you should run, including which implementation of Bitcoin that you should run. They are all side by side on the marketplace. As of StartOS 040, we actually put a lot of work into making StartOS as approachable and easy to use and neutral as possible. And so if you're not on StartOS 040 yet, highly recommend updating, because it's a night and day improvement, including the ability to choose and switch between Bitcoin implementations, which could become important to you in the next few days. So if you are not on StartOS 040 yet, and you are using StartOS to run Bitcoin, regardless of which flavor of Bitcoin you're running, whether it's core, NOTS RDTS, or NOTS pre-RDTS, whichever one of those you're running, you are going to be much better off if you are on StartOS 040, because depending on what happens when mandatory signaling kicks in, and nobody knows for sure what's going to happen yet, you will be able to seamlessly switch between these implementations if your goals and the network, the circumstance around you require it, and it might. I shouldn't say require. You always have a choice, but what you choose is highly dependent on what happens, what your goals are, and that the technology you're using has the ability to enact your choice. And so we highly recommend updating to 040 right away if you have not already. It's not that if you're not on 040 you're screwed. You're not. It's just not as simple, and you could make a mistake and have to, resync the blockchain, for example. That would be a bad scenario, because it could take, another 24 to 48 hours. And during that time, if you have a Lightning node, it's offline, and someone could, broadcast an invalid state that you cannot counter with a justice transaction and actually lose money. It's unlikely to happen, but it could happen. And so you should take measures to prevent it from happening. Let me pause there and just see if it's too much too fast, or if there's something that we should zero in on, or if you just want me to keep spouting information. I actually don't know how that came across.
I thought it was great. That made perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it made perfect sense to me as well. So what do you think is going to happen? I think is the main question for you, Matt.
Well, I'll get there. Let me kind of lay the ground. Let me lay the the background a little bit here. So in Bitcoin, there is it is well understood at this point, which was not that hard to understand, by the way, right? It was just a fact of Bitcoin. It's part of its nature, is that the way that you change consensus rules in Bitcoin, the mechanism by which consensus rules are changed, is a soft fork. That's how you do it. The other way to change consensus rules is a hard fork, but that's actually the formation of a new chain, a new coin, right? A hard fork will almost always result in a chain split. Let me back up one step even further, okay? And I really hope the audience appreciates some of this, because some people are just their eyes are gonna glaze over, but some people might really appreciate it. Fork is a misnomer, okay? It was a bad choice of words. What a fork is in Bitcoin, when somebody says the word fork, what they mean is change of consensus rules. That's it. It does not mean that there's two chains. A fork is not like this. It's just a change. A fork is this. You're changing something in Bitcoin, okay? And depending on how you change it, it may or may not lead to a splitting of the chains. They are totally different concepts, okay? So a soft fork has never resulted in a chain split, ever. A persistent chain split in all of Bitcoin's history. And there have been a lot of soft forks. Not one of them has resulted in the formation of a new currency. That's important to know, that the precedent here is entirely on the side of soft forks do not result in chain splits. We've never seen it yet. On the other side, hard forks almost always result in chain splits. And I believe there's only like one counterexample in all of Bitcoin's history. And it was very, very early on, when the ability to coordinate all the nodes was much simpler, because there just weren't that many of them. So they were able to get everybody to update to the hard fork client at the same time and avoid a chain split. But now, in any modern history, hard forking Bitcoin results in a chain split. Bitcoin Cash being an example, right? And there were many hard fork chain splits back in 2017, 18. You remember, like Bitcoin Diamond and Bitcoin Gold, right? So these are hard forks. What is the difference between a soft fork and a hard fork? Soft fork is you are changing the consensus rules such that the new rules are more constrictive than the old rules. In other words, what used to be allowed is no longer allowed. That's a soft fork, and it generally, in all of history, does not result in a chain split. A hard fork is the opposite of that. It's what used to be prohibited is now allowed. And the reason why, and that is a hard fork. So that's the difference. Soft fork constricts the consensus rules. Hard fork loosens the consensus rules. One results in a chain split in the form of a hard fork, and the other does not in the form of a soft fork. Theoretically, it is possible for a soft fork to result in a persistent chain split. Theoretically. It's never happened. And me and most of the people who do a lot of thinking about this, and sort of these scenario, thought experiments, do not believe that this one will result in a persistent chain split as well. I think that is extremely low likelihood that the BIP-110 soft fork will result in a persistent chain split. And the reason I keep saying the word persistent is because there's a very strong possibility that it will result in a very short-lived chain split, right? Like, as it stands, the BIP-110 nodes. So I'm sure there's people listening to this who are running knots. The current version of knots is a BIP-110 enforcing client. There are probably lots of you out there. We are personally aware of thousands of people, many of whom bought devices from us specifically to run Bitcoin knots and the BIP-110 soft fork client. We know this because they told us, right? This is not us promoting anything. It's not us speculating. This is thousands of people have come to us over the past 12 months with the explicit declaration that they want to and are running this client. And so any arguments that it's like a Sybil attack and stuff like that, or, I'm not saying every node out there is a human behind it with real Bitcoin who wants to participate in the network. I'm sure there are a couple of fake ones here and there, but by and large, the numbers are real. We've done our best to share that with everyone, again, because we believe in transparency and we think that people make better decisions when they are well informed. That group played their hand. BIP-110 is happening, right? Like, there are thousands of nodes in the world, somewhere between 20,000 nodes, 15 to 20% of the Bitcoin network is now locked in to BIP-110. The only way that any one of those people could unlock themselves is by uninstalling knots and running core, or running knots RDTS. They would have to like opt out of the client at this point. But I know for certain that not everyone's going to do that. And I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that without a doubt, somewhere between 15 and 20% of the Bitcoin network is going to enforce mandatory signaling in 3 days. That's going to happen. And there's no way to turn back at this point. So the hand is played. Okay. So now the miners have to play their hand, right? What's done is done. BIP-110 is happening. The miners have to play their hand now. And what they have before them is the following decision, okay? Every miner, every large miner, and every group of medium-sized miners has the following decision to make. I can prevent a chain split. Every large miner has the power right now to prevent a chain split. And the way that they do that is they would start signaling for BIP-110, okay? If you're a large miner, say you're Foundry, and you start signaling for BIP-110, every other miner would pretty much have to start signaling for BIP-110 as well, because as soon as there's even meaningful hash on the side of BIP-110, it necessarily creates a snowball effect where everyone moves over there. And the reason for that is that if people start moving over to the BIP-110 side, if miners start moving over to the BIP-110 side, everyone who's not moving over has a dramatically increased risk of having all of the work that they do to mine blocks and earn Bitcoin rewards wiped out. Because if the BIP-110 side ever catches up and accumulates more proof of work, even if it's 2 weeks down the line, it completely reorganizes the other chain, wipes out everything. So it is a massive nuclear asymmetric attack vector against the legacy chain. And so long as no miners move over to BIP-110, right? If no miners move over to BIP-110 and start signaling for BIP-110, then BIP-110 basically dies on the launch pad, okay? Mandatory signaling hits, nobody is signaling the version bit, and the chain just sort of is stillborn, all right? We can talk about what happens then next. But at the moment, but keep in mind, that will cause a chain split, okay? So on the one hand, every large miner and collection of medium-sized miners can say, okay, we can prevent a chain split. We didn't cause it. Those BIP-110 assholes caused it, but we can prevent it, okay? We can prevent the chain split from happening right now. And in so doing, August 8th and 9th would come and go like any other, Friday, Saturday, okay? It's literally TikTok next block, Bitcoin just chugs along, all right? No chain split, no chaos. The entire economy stays intact. 100% of nodes on the entire network remain in consensus. Nobody gets excommunicated. There's no loss of fees, no economic turmoil, no lightning channels frozen. We need to talk about that. Exchanges don't freeze up. There's no replay attack vector. Basically, all this chaos and risk and disruption goes away as soon as a major miner signals for BIP-110. It's just the peace button. There's just every miner right now has like a stability and peace button that they can press. If none of them do that, if no miners out there press the peace and stability button to keep the network intact and prevent a chain split, there will be a chain split, okay? So we can dig into what that means, that scenario next, but I want to pause here and see if there's anything I've said that's unclear, incorrect, or you want me to expand upon.
No, I mean, I think you put it beautifully, Matt. Now my following up question to that is, what do you think is going to happen?
For weeks now, I have been surprised that no miners have pushed that button. Because two reasons. One, I have operated under an assumption that miners in large want to keep 100% of the economy intact because it maximizes their fees. Like it'd be like 10 states in the United States just announcing that they're going to leave the union and no longer contribute, taxes or whatever. And just basically they're just going to secede and take all their productive energy and capital with them. Historically speaking, there is, whenever something like that has even been talked about, there's been an enormous effort by the collective to be like, no, let's stay together. Like together is better. So from a miner's perspective, it has always made sense to me that they would want to keep as much of the economy intact as possible to maximize their fee revenue. But secondly, to maximize stability. Chain splits are highly disruptive and in ways that are very difficult to reason about, right? Like chain splits can result in, like I said, any lightning adds enormous complexity to chain splits. So if there's a bunch of people out there with lightning channels, including exchanges that have counterparties, some of whom are running BIP-110 and others who are not, and there's a chain split, it's like, good luck reasoning through that. You can't close channels. You can't enforce justice transactions. And a lot of this comes down to like how the chain split plays out. Again, if it's instantaneous, short-lived, and not a single block ever gets mined on the BIP-110 side, it gets a lot easier to reason about. But as soon as there's actually two divergent chains moving into the future, it can get really complicated really fast. And again, we'll talk about in a moment what will happen if there is a chain split and if there's hash or not hash supporting the minority chain, and then what everyone will do. But it has always made sense to me that the miners would prefer to keep the network and the economy intact to avoid chaos and instability and freezes and all the rest. And so given that it did not require miner consensus, right? It's not like all the miners had to get together and be like, hey, let's activate BIP-110. What do you think? That was not necessary. One miner unilaterally could be like, you know what? Let's signal for BIP-110 and see what happens. It's risk-free, right? Because if they start signaling and nobody else does, they just stop signaling. It's like reconnaissance. It's like going out into the jungle to like check out and see what's out there and see what kind of response takes place. And so say like one miner was just like, yeah, let's check it out. Let's like see how the network would react to this, move, and they signal. If that happens and it's a large miner, then the other miners are suddenly like, oh, Foundry's signaling. Does that mean they're going to activate it? Because if they do, then we're at risk of being wiped out. So maybe we should signal too. So it causes this sort of incentivized snowballing effect. And all it takes is one large miner or a collection of medium-sized miners to take that risk-free reconnaissance action to then kind of cause the snowball effect for universal signaling and ultimately the fork locking in. That made a lot of sense to me and a lot of sense to a lot of other people too. It hasn't happened. No large miner or collection of medium-sized miners has stepped up and begun signaling for BIP-110. And so when you ask me what I think is going to happen, that still makes sense to me. It still makes sense. Like if I'm in the position of miners, or if the miners are the economic actors I think that they are or should be, it still doesn't make sense to me that they don't start signaling in mass for BIP-110. And so there's something potentially, if that doesn't happen, if there is not a immediate, very rapid rise in signaling for BIP-110 over the next couple of days, then I'm missing something. There's one of two things that I'm missing. Either one, my analysis and worldview is wrong, or two, the miners have an incentive that I can't see, right? Like maybe there's something else incentivizing them besides just, maximizing economic benefit from the network and maintaining peace and stability. Maybe there's a separate incentive. What some people have put out is the following. So when I brought this up to people, and I had a long debate about this at the Denver Bitcoin Space Meetup last night, which I highly recommend watching. It was very informative and very professional too, right? Like we weren't screaming at each other. It was an open debate about this whole situation. What they have mentioned is the reason the miners don't want to signal is because they don't want to set precedent that an economically meaningful yet minority portion of the network can simply like tell them what to do. That they don't like this idea of like 20% of the network getting together and very, very aggressively wanting to make a change and them just having to like take it, right? That this is like a power struggle where the miners are like, no, we run the network. And the nodes are like, no, we run the network. And so the miners are acting against their own economic interest and the stability of the network in order to assert their dominance over the network. And what's really fascinating about that argument is that what it means is, because again, remember what I said before, it doesn't require, activating BIP-110 does not require all the miners to agree to activate it. It just requires one to try to activate it in order to kick in the game theoretical snowball. So what it means is if none of them have activated it, to some degree, they really trust each other. To some degree, the miners are sitting there being like, well, I won't signal if you don't signal. It's not signal. Like they're basically functioning as a single mining constituency and entity, not as independent actors in an open economy, which is not good for Bitcoin, in my opinion. Like this is not a good outcome if the miners can basically take 20% of the network that very, very much wants something, when 80% of the network is not doing anything to combat it in code, in network dynamics, right? They might be complaining about it on X, but Bitcoin's not a democracy. Bitcoin doesn't care about people's opinions. Bitcoin is code. Code is law. The code that you run is your opinion and your influence on the network. And nobody, not one person that I'm aware of, has managed to write, implement, or run a piece of software that would reject BIP-110. And so from the miner's perspective, it's not a choice between BIP-110 and not BIP-110. The miners are choosing everybody versus 80%. Why wouldn't you choose everybody? And the only answer that I've been able to get from anyone is because they don't like them. It's like, screw those 20%. We don't like those people. And so it's like basically saying that emotions are determining, Bitcoin's protocol direction, and the miners are close enough and small enough in number to actually coordinate their emotional decisions, which is just a massive reinforcement of the centralization of mining and their pettiness, in my opinion. So all of this analysis might lead someone watching to be like, I'm like aggressively shoving BIP-110 down everybody's throat. I'm doing an analysis of network dynamics and consensus dynamics and expressing a preference for how I would like Bitcoin governance to work. I think it's necessary that minority movements can make changes, consensus changes to Bitcoin. For years, there have been people trying to activate soft forks, right? From Paul Short to Jeremy Rubin to you name it. There's a lot of soft fork ideas out there, people that want to change Bitcoin's consensus. And do you know what they do? They ask everyone's permission. They write up a BIP, they go to the mailing list, and they're not just vetting the idea, which is a good thing to do. They're asking everyone's permission to do the thing that they want to do. And there's some magic number, probably 50% if you squint a little bit, right? Because again, most people are thinking about Bitcoin as a democracy. They're thinking about Bitcoin as like majority rule. If everyone, 60% of the network wants something, then it should happen. And I'm like, get out of that mindset. That is a meat-based democratic mindset that doesn't even work here, let alone in the Bitcoin digital space. Bitcoin is not a democracy. The idea that anyone from here forward into the future of Bitcoin is going to propose an idea and get a super majority of everyone in the world to be like, yeah, we love that idea. Go do it, go forth, implement it. We grant you our permission. It's never going to happen. Bitcoin is too big, too important, and has too many competing interests at this point for there to ever emerge a social consensus around a consensus change. It's not going to happen. The only way that Bitcoin moves forward, the only way that it progresses is if very convicted minorities who care deeply about a change push it forward. This whole, you can just do things, better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. It's not who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me. These are tenets of Bitcoin and tenets of how anything good in the world gets done. It's never the masses getting together and deciding to build a new rocket ship. It's one or a small group of people just doing it and dragging everyone into the future with them. And I think that this is necessary for Bitcoin. I think it's beautiful, in fact. And the way that you combat it, if you don't like it, the way that it should work, right? We have accepted for years now, I mentioned this earlier, that the way to change Bitcoin consensus is via a soft fork. That's it, right? That's how you change consensus. It seems right to me, beautiful, in fact, symmetric, that the way to prevent a soft fork that you don't want is also with a soft fork. It's like fencing. Somebody jabs at you, right? There is a known, understood way to defend against that attack, right? So they jab at you, you defend against it with your own sword. What we're witnessing in Bitcoin right now is one side being like, all right, we want to change Bitcoin, ready? Here we go. And they're jabbing, right? And the other side is just standing there going, help, this person's trying to stab me. I don't like it. Like, come in and save me. And the person's like, dude, defend yourself. If you don't like what I'm doing, just parry the attack and we can all just move on with our lives. But because the person standing there chose not to defend themselves, but instead just chose to insult the person who was attempting to poke at them, right? Like, you idiot, you can't poke me. Like, and what it led to is now the culture, the community, and the network are about to split. Guys, this is not good for Bitcoin. I'm sorry, I don't care what you think about the BIP-110ers, but I'm telling you right now that it is thousands of completely ideologically aligned good people. And we are in short supply of those people in the world today. It is not desirable to carve off a massive chunk of your economy and support with vicious insults of fork the fuck off and get out of Bitcoin, we don't want you, to a constituency full of extremely good, honest Bitcoiners. This is not good for Bitcoin, and it could have been completely avoided had the side that was against this fork simply released their own client, their own version of core anti-RDTS, we'll call it, and people installed it. The fighting would have been confined to the battle. It would have been confined to the ring, okay? But because we couldn't fight in the ring, we fought in life. And now we're about to lose a limb. And so I want BIP-110 to activate, and I'll stop after this. The main reason that I want BIP-110 to activate right now is because I think that Bitcoin needs to be able to implement soft fork changes with strong, passionate minorities who are convicted about something, if and only if there is no resistance in the form of a counter soft fork. I think that that is an important lesson that we can and should learn, and that we should choose, right? Like, Bitcoin is what we want it to be. I think that that's how soft fork should be implemented. And number two, if we were ever going to learn that lesson, this is the most benign fork ever to learn it on, because it does almost nothing, okay? Like, BIP-110 takes a few methods of embedding data that were not even intended to be created, right? They were these like effects of other features, right? Unintended features, we'll call them. Unintended features are often known as bugs. And so all BIP-110 does is close a couple of known methods of embedding data into Bitcoin, which both sides of the argument, by the way, say they hate, right? So nobody is actually hurt by the changes enacted in BIP-110. And those changes are temporary. They expire in a year. So even if it turns out that one of them was like, oh boy, we shouldn't have closed that, there's this super useful use case for it, right? It expires in a year. So this is basically like, it's like, if you're ever gonna learn how to ride a bike, it should be on training wheels in the grass. So if you fall, it's like, oh, I learned a lesson, but I'm not hurt. So if we were ever going to learn that Bitcoin governance should be soft forks versus soft forks, and this is sort of how the duel takes place, and it stays out of the personal realm and it stays within in the ring, this is the ultimate time to learn that lesson, because the fork itself it doesn't do anything to Bitcoin's consensus, really. It doesn't change much. Ultimately, what it does, and the main reason that BIP-110 people support BIP-110 is that it reaffirms the networks and the culture's willingness to fight spam. It sets an antagonistic stance towards spam and spammers. It says, you know, BIP-110 doesn't stop spam, but it is our declaration that we are going to continue the cat and mouse game. It is our declaration that we are going to continue to try to mitigate spam on Bitcoin forever, knowing that we can never stop it. So it's more of a cultural fork. It's more of a cultural stance against spam. If BIP-110 fails, and the reason why the BIP-110ers are digging in so hard here with their heels and refusing to let this go is, I think rightfully, their perception is, if BIP-110 fails, there will, at least for the foreseeable future, there will be no more talk of spam. Spam is now it's just like, you can't define spam. And even if you could define spam, there's no mechanism by which, your definition matches my definition. And even if we all agreed on what spam was, there's no way to stop it anyway. So, we're just going to like open the doors, roll out the red carpet. It's like, if you admitted that, someone could break into your house via the chimney, that you're just like, well, fuck it, just unlock all the windows, open all the doors. Just, you may as well just let them walk in, because you can't actually stop somebody from getting into your home. So just open up all the doors, right? That is how the BIP-110 side feels about this fork, is that if it fails, it's the equivalent of just being like, well, we can't stop it, so open up all the doors. Yeah. And I personally think that is a mistake to do.
Beautifully put. Final question for you, Matt. And someone asked us in the chat, which side are you on?
I just told you I want to see BIP-110 succeed. The primary reason that I want to see it succeed is because I think changes in Bitcoin, right? Everyone for years has been looking for, how do you activate a soft fork? And I very much want that answer to be, just go activate it. You can just do things. Just release a client into the wild, get as many people out there excited about it and running it as possible. And unless there emerges defense, right? Like if the rest of the network chooses, if they're apathetic, if they're just like, yeah, we don't like this thing, but we're not going to stop it, we're not going to fight against it, then it should activate. I think that this is how soft fork should be activated, is basically undefended clients, right? Soft fork clients left undefended against should activate. The second reason is because I think it is a mistake at this point in Bitcoin's history to end the spam debate. And I think BIP-110's failure, if it fails, will mark the end of the community, culture, and network's willingness to even discuss mitigating spam. Like, it's not even gonna be on the table anymore. Like, it'll be laughed out of the room, right? If BIP-110 fails and somebody comes in, they're like, guys, there's just massive returns with literal videos of child pornography on the Bitcoin blockchain, I think we should do something about this. They will be laughed out of the room with like, guys, we had that battle and you got your asses kicked. So there it is and there it remains, fuck off. That's basically the aftermath of BIP-110's failure, right? Is spam is not to be fought, not to be mentioned, not to be mitigated. Just don't talk about spam. Bitcoin is for spam. Will be the accepted stance.
Got it. Well, Matt, thank you so much for enlightening us on everything. Extremely knowledgeable, guys. Run your own server, be sovereign. Go check out start9.com. It's the node that I use personally. Always been a huge fan of Matt. He's a friend of the show. And Matt, thank you so much for coming on today and just enlightening us on what's going on. This is a crazy month in Bitcoin. The Coldcard event, now this, and the Clarity Act, like it's all kind of converging. And then we've just been going sideways for 3 months. So, that's another element to it as well. So I do, Matt?
I didn't mean to come in here and just rant the whole time.
No.
It just happened.
That's exactly why we brought you on the show, my friend. Thank you so much for enlightening us on this, Matt. You're very, very knowledgeable. Consider you a friend as well. Known each other for years. And thanks, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. Before we close out, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ocean. Take control of your Bitcoin mining, make more money, the industry's lowest fees and most transparent payouts. They allow you to choose between either pointing your miners or either using Bitcoin Core or NOT's BIP-110. Point your miners to mine.ocean.xyz:334. Get started at ocean.xyz. All right, everybody, that was today's show. If you guys enjoyed today's show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, This week's going to be a little bit different in terms of our normal news programming. We're bringing on lots of security experts as it relates to the Coldcard issue. We're going to bring on more people as it relates to the BIP-110 issue. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.